Hello lovely people, I'm Catherine and welcome to this week's video for the coverlet of comfort. This is the last week of fancy stitching on the block for April, so next week will be the first Wednesday in May and we'll move on to the next block. So for my final sort of lot of stitching, my final session of stitching, I wanted to show you, if you don't know it already, it's known as the Algerian eyelet stitch, or also the star stitch, which is a fairly simple embroidery stitch, but then I want to show you a couple of variations as well. One where you go over with a second layer of stitches, and the second variation is wonky. Basically, wonky Algerian. I don't think that's official, that's just me. Anyway, so I've got some threads out of my orts. Feels like I've been away for ages, and I haven't been away for you because the videos were all made in advance, except for Park Home Life, which I obviously made with Lily last week. But anyway, feels like I've been away from this for ages, although it's only really been a couple of weeks. What was I saying? Yes, show them how to do the stitch, Catherine. So I've been through my orts, my tangly orts, and I have pulled out some yellows and golds, and I've also pulled out some white, because for one of the variations you need two different colours really for it to really, you know, look great. Oh, there's a fly in here now, so I had the doors open because it's been lovely weather. Excuse me going off on a million tangents. But anyway, you'll see when I do it and then you can choose for yourself. Some of you have said about things not showing up because you've got a paler background. There's no reason why you can't do your stars darker colours, almost like a, you know, a negative. So if you've got a very pale background you could do dark. You don't have to do them, you know, white or gold or silver even. You could do them in colours. You could have coloured, I mean these stars are colours, so you know, why not? Just saying that. Okay, so the basic Algerian eyelet stitch, I've got 2 strands of regular embroidery floss with a knot in my needle. Where shall I show you where it will be obvious? Let's show you here on this big openish space. You work like an eyelet stitch, well it is an eyelet stitch, so you work into the centre all the time. You can, if you want them to be super even. Obviously doing this with them as an embroidery stitch you'd probably be working on a canvas or a linen, you know, with obvious holes. We're obviously not, I keep saying obviously. I'm just working on regular cotton cloth. But if you want it to be, it kind of will look like a square when it's done. If you want to draw yourself a centre point, and then let me show you on a bit of pen and pencil and paper, because I do know some of you like things to not be wonky, and that's fair enough. I'll do it on here on the side of Sirius. So if this is the centre of your star here, then you've got 8 stitches. So you've got stitches doing vertical and horizontal like this, and then you've got stitches on the diagonals like this, and done, you know, properly, Royal School of Needlework style. This line is not stitched, it's just to show you. All those stitches will hit the should have drawn the square first. If I draw the square first with a centre, the stitches then come halfway the sides, coming in like this, and then from the corners coming in like that. So your star is filling a square space. These outer lines, just to say again, are not stitched, okay? So that's how to do it properly in inverted commas. I'm not going to draw, but if you want to draw you could draw yourself a faint square, or you could use you know, one of those marking pens that disappears in some way if you want to. I'm just going to visualise on the cloth because I don't mind if it's wonky, but that's just to tell you if you want to keep it all square and even, how you could do it. So you could draw yourself a square and mark the centre with a little dot. I'm just going to visualise my centre as here somewhere. I'm going to do the diagonals first. So you go down into the centre, and then you come up on the next diagonal. So do you see that's kind of making a right angle there like that? and then go down into the centre again, and then come up down here somewhere, picking up a thread hair as you go. That's not obligatory. Well, it is here, but it's not for you unless you've got your own version of thread. Down into the centre again. It looks super awkward because I'm trying to do it so that you can see. And up into the fourth corner, like so. And then down into the centre again, and that'll be our fourth diagonal. So now we want to do the straight stitches, so then you come up halfway between those two, and then down into the centre, and up halfway between the next two. You guessed it, down into the centre, up halfway the other side. I could turn it. I don't know which is more confusing for you, me turning it or me doing it, you know, awkwardly. Like that, and then down again into the centre to finish. So that's how you do it running stitch style, you know what I mean, rather than stab stitching. And then you get this little star, which is, you know, virtually filling a square. And then you could, oops, I didn't pull that very tight, did I, as I went round? Don't know which one it was now, doesn't matter. And then you could, if you wanted to, go round again. If you wanted to, you could just come up in the spaces, you know, to make it more filled in. And this is now no longer, this is another variation. So that way, come across. That way. Just come up in one of the other spaces that you haven't been in yet. Sorry, dog's barking. Oops, don't do that. Told you it'd been a while. I didn't do any stitching while Lily was here. And then you want to go across there. It's probably easier if I stab stitch because otherwise I'll keep turning and you'll get confused. So you can just, you know, once you've got the basic, you can just mess about to your little heart's content. And that's the final one. So basically I just went in between the spaces over and over again, and this time I didn't go down in the centre, I went right over. And I think that's quite cute actually. And so now to do another star somewhere else, you could either finish off and jump. I think what I'm going to do, because that's tedious, is just do some wibbly lines of running stitch to get myself to the next place where I want to be. But obviously you do you, but you don't want to watch me for an hour, you know, stopping and starting my thread. So I'm just going to come up somewhere nearby where I went down and decide where I want my next star to be. Maybe I'll go up this way somewhere. I'll just turn it round. And then I'm just going to do a few little running stitches. Maybe if I do a small stitch and a big space. The little running stitches themselves, I mean that's tiny, that's almost disappeared. You could of course do some version of the invisible base so that it hardly showed, you just get little dots. But I'm just getting these little, that thread hair is persistent. I'm just getting these tiny little golden dots which will just be sort of background stitching. I think I'll do one more. I might come up here somewhere. So on the back I'm doing about 1/2 inch. But it's just coming up with ways when you're working like this, doing kind of isolated motifs, to get yourself from one place to the other without keep stopping starting your thread, because I'm sure we're all agreed that that's not the best thing, that's not the most fun. So now I'm here, so let's now do another variation which is wonky. So forget all the stuff I said about it has to look like it's filling a square. Now anything goes. The basic technique remains the same, so you're stitching from the outside of the star to the centre. But this time you can put as many spokes as you want in however many directions you want, as long as they come to the centre, and you can vary the length. So you can just play with the basic structure of the stitch, which, if I had to sum up what I do in a sentence or in a phrase, it would be taking well-loved and honoured techniques and messing about with them. That's what I do with log cabins. That's what I'm now doing with the Algerian star. So as long as you keep coming up and going down into the centre, and there's a wonky star with 5 points, and then I can stitch myself along again to the next spot. So I'll come up there, and you can make them bigger and smaller, and you can have fun stitching yourself a whole little galaxy. So I'm going to do the same thing again, take a tiny stitch on the front and a slightly bigger stitch on the back, because I'm liking the look of that. A couple of times, maybe once more, just to get me to the next place. So you see these little stitches, if you did enough of it, you could even cross the lines as you come across. They'll just, like, you know, if you look at photographs of a galaxy, you see there are big patches of light, which may be individual stars. If you look at photos of space, there may be individual stars, or there may be whole galaxies that you see just as a patch of light, right down to tiny little pinpricks of different, you know, variations, and you know all this, don't you? So this is kind of what we're going for. So we've got these bigger stars that are either just bigger stars or are closer to us, and then we've got the tiny little ones that are further away, and we've got our constellations, and then we've got these huge stars. It's just a galaxy, not the chocolate one. Do you have galaxies in other countries? Galaxy chocolate bars. Is it Cadbury's? Cadbury's is now owned by an American company. Anyway, I digress again. Right, so now I'm going to do another variation. So I'm going to start with the basic Algerian star. So here's my corner. So I'm going to imagine my centre here. I'm going to go in there and come up for my next corner. I'm not going to bother about it looking exactly like a square when it's done. Back into the centre, up onto there, because I'd rather just stitch than worry about it being regular, but you do you. Down into the centre, up to there. Got a little knot in the thread, excusing me. Okay, and the last one down into the centre, the last one of the diagonals, and I'll come up and do the excuse me, the straight sides, like I say, 1, 2. I'll jump across there because it's easier to do. Doesn't matter really which order you do them in. I'll stab stitch just because it's better than turning from your point of view, I think. And that's my final one. Now I want to switch threads now, so I could either finish this thread off, but because it's just a little tiny bit, I'm going to stitch myself along a bit. I'm going to come back to this. I hope that's not confusing for you. I'm just going to come up somewhere to one side, just to use up my bit of thread. So the same thing I was doing before, a small stitch on the front, a bigger stitch on the back. And in fact, I think I've even got enough to do a very small, wonky one. I don't know why, but this thread is not laying nicely together. In fact, it was 2 separate strands that I pulled out, and it's very possible that they're going in opposite directions. Sometimes if you do that with embroidery floss, when you split the strands, because it has a grain, a pile, whatever you call it, so sometimes if you split them and put them together, one laying one way and one laying the other, it does that. That would be my suspicion. Right, so I think that's enough of that thread, so I'll finish that off and I'll go back. And I've got my other needle ready threaded, ready thready go. Sorry, it's because I went to see the Manfreds and they wrote the theme song for Ready Thready Go. Ready Steady Go it was actually called. Anyway, so I've now got my white, so I'm going to come back to this one. It was just the straightforward Algerian star. Now this time I'm going to come up somewhere along the length of where I've already stitched, and I want to split those two. I want to come up between those 2 strands, maybe say halfway along. I hope you can you see? So I'm coming up between those 2 strands halfway along the spoke, and then I'm going down into the centre with the white. And I'm going to do that around every spoke. And you know, if you split the actual thread and don't come up halfway between exactly and all that, that doesn't matter. That's just the basic principle, like I say. So what we do here is we take basic principles and we play fast and loose with them. So, I mean, these two strands are twisted, but I'm just making sure I'm coming up somewhere in the middle of them or within them. I'm going back down into the centre every time. Now I'm going away from me, so maybe I can do it in one movement. Yes, I can. Just pushing the stitches into place with my thumb as I go. And the middle does get a bit crowded. But it gives it a kind of three-dimensional effect. I'm going to go back to stab stitching, otherwise I would have to turn it. Go on that. I think those are really cute. I hope the contrast is showing up on the camera. But you'll see it yourself if you do it in person. And also you see here where I've split those two strands properly, that thread kind of holds them apart and gives them a bit of a, more of a point to them, more of a triangular shape rather than a, you know, it worked best where I did it best, obviously. So there we go, so that's another variation. So basically that's what I'm going to do. I've done those in a bit of a line, so I need to break that up a bit because I don't really want a straight line of stars. So I'm going to just do variations on those all over the place. Oh, there's one more thing I could do with this bit of white. Well, there's many things I could do. I'm sure you can take this basic principle and come up with your own variations. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before to get myself, I'm going to get myself up to this star. So just a small stitch on the front and a big stitch on the back. You could of course just do regular running stitch if you want to. There's that fly who wants to be in the video. And I'm going to come up again halfway in between the spokes and do some, now I haven't got an even number of spokes, of spaces, sorry, I've got 5 spaces, so I can't do crosses over. Well, I could, but one of them wouldn't have a pair opposite. Do you see what I mean? So what I'll do instead is just do another mini eyelet stitch going into the centre from in between the spaces in the contrasting colour. You could, if you could wrangle it, just keep both your threaded needles in the work and just park them, you know, make sure you don't stab yourself if you want to work in 2 colours. Or you could just stitch a lot of the gold until you run out and then go and work with the white till it runs out. That's probably what I would do. Come up in the space, down in the centre, come up in the space. So that's another variation. So it's all the same basic theme. Also cute. You see it's got a different look to that. I mean, they're obviously related, but they're cousins. Or sisters. Sister stars. They're not identical twins. I like that so much, this. I think I want to go back and do it here as well. So if you did a star like this, but you had an even number of spaces, you could just stitch straight across like I did here with the gold. You could have done that with the white. So I hope that is enough ideas. I'm not going to go now, obviously, because that would be ridiculously short. I'm just going to carry on doing that. And I might open the window so that fly goes out, because he's getting a bit cross. There's no noise outside at the moment apart from the birds, so hopefully that's alright for you. So I am going to park this for a minute, I think, because it's too long to use up, and get some more gold and carry on stitching some stars for a bit with you. So if you're only here to find out what to do, now you know. If you want to listen to me witter about who knows what, oh, I do want to tell you about a video I just watched this morning. Stick around. I'm going to thread my needle with another bit of gold. Well, first of all, I shall tell you about my week with Lily that you didn't see in Park Home Life. By the way, talking of that, on Friday, if you didn't see it, on Friday we did a mother-daughter Park Home Life, Lily was here for a week. She went home yesterday. It was a bit sad. It was lovely to have her here. I had to take her quite early to the airport, so I was home by about 10 AM. And yeah, it was a bit sad. So I picked myself up, gave myself a kick up the backside and went and did some gardening. So that was nice. I'd been with Lily one of the days, stitch and talk, Catherine. One of the days we went to a vintage textile fair in a little village hall where a friend of mine had a table. It was all, I think there was one or two kind of professional people, but it was mostly private people, you know, getting rid of clothing or sewing related stuff. And I did not buy one single thing. How good am I? It wasn't that there wasn't nice things there, but I'm still doing my thing of where will I put this, what will I use this for, rather than just buying something because I like it. On the whole, I'm doing that. I did buy a gecko door handle in Dillyway and Dillyway. I'll show you that in the next Park Home Life. If you watch Park Home Life, you'll know that I was rather taken with the door handles. And yeah, a little gecko did just jump into my pocket. Well, I paid for it. That sounds like I took it. I did pay for it. Of course I did. I would never do that in a million years. So where was I? Lily. Yeah, so it was a bit sad because we had such a lovely week. The weather on the whole was kind to us. So we did... we went to Glastonbury, you saw that. We went to Duncliffe Woods to see the bluebells and had a lovely walk. We went to another woods not far from where I live, where I'll take you one day. I've been meaning to go for a while. In fact, Joey and I tried to walk there and we got maybe 3/4 of the way and it took 3/4 of an hour, so that would have meant 3/4 of an hour back, and yeah, Joey wasn't feeling 100%, so we turned around and came back. We never got there, so but Lily and I drove there because I wanted to find the other side of the journey, if you see what I mean. And it is quite a walk. It's sort of more than an hour to get there walking. Most of it's on lanes. So yeah, I think it is better to drive there, all things considered, unless you really wanted a hike, because you walk an hour, you get there, you walk round the woods for a good hour, and then you've got another hour to walk home again, back the way you went. But you know, who knows? Who says I won't do it one day? I might. So we went there and had a lovely walk with Stella. Stella had the time of her life. And then, what else did we do? Oh, yeah, we went to the vintage textile. That was on Sunday, actually. And we'd booked a table because Lily wanted a Sunday lunch, a roast Sunday lunch. Although when we actually got sitting down in this lovely pub where I'd booked for Sunday lunch, she had a burger because she just fancied it. But I had a roast Sunday lunch. It was very nice. So what am I doing? Eyelet stars. So yeah, and while we were waiting for it to be time, after we'd looked around the textile fair, while we were waiting for it to be time to go for our lunch, our roast Sunday burger, we were not far away from what I thought was going to be a plant nursery, but which turned out to be more of a garden centre, which I mentioned a while ago. And there they had, and I had got some soil improver, it's called, and it's produced reasonably locally. In fact, it's produced, I think, near Glastonbury, and it wasn't very expensive, and I put some on that new bed that far side, and I was quite pleased with it. I think it's composted farmyard manure and composted bark from sustainable sources, so it says on the back. So I went and got some more of that. Long story short, long story longer. I went and got some of that, and so that was here. Lily helped me with the bags because they're quite big, heavy bags. So yeah, yesterday when I was sad, I thought, oh, I'll get that in the garden, so I did that. And my neighbour had given me some troughs, you know, to put plants in, plastic ones that he'd got from a friend, I think, but he didn't want them, and the friend didn't want them, and he was going to take them to the tip. And he asked me if I wanted them, and I said yes, please. Oh gosh, nearly had a heart attack. Fredred just came in through the window. You made me jump, boo. He appeared out of nowhere. Sorry, just get my breath back. Yeah, so, and they came complete with their old compost in, so I spread that on the garden as well. So my new bed, the bed along this side, if you watch my Park Home Life, 2 Park Home Lives ago when I showed you my garden, they didn't have anything in and was very low, and I'd left the sides built up, like I said. That's now full of, well, fuller, you know, there's still space. And I've got a few plants that friends have given me to put in there. So, and there's also a plant growing in my little bit of grass in front, not the primrose, there's lots of primroses which are just finishing flowering, so I have mowed that because the grass was getting very long and most of the dandelions had set seed, and it was, yeah, you have to think of the neighbours, and it's so neat here, I didn't want people, you know, upset because it was getting overgrown. Anyway, I cut the grass. I cut the grass. I could have just said that instead of all the other waffle. So I cut the grass. And I cut round this. I think it's symphytum. I will have to check my book, or I could use my app, which is technically a native. Some people call it a weed, but I like it, and I've had it in gardens before, and it's not that badly behaved, you know, it doesn't take over. So I plan to dig that up and put it in, because it will do okay in the shade if it is symphytum. So that will be on the agenda for this afternoon, because we've been having lovely weather. Well, you know, if you like sun and warm. I have a bit of a thing about saying lovely weather and bad weather. Now, who said that? There's no such thing as bad. I think it might have been Billy Connolly. Or he's quoted whoever said it. There's no such thing as bad weather, there's only the wrong clothes. Because it's all relative, isn't it? I mean, if you're somewhere hot and dry, then that's bad weather, and rain is welcome. So yeah, let's not say bad weather and good weather. It's been warm and sunny. So yeah, and that did perk me up yesterday, because I did drive home from the airport. I did have a little cry in the car. Now there's a bee coming in, so it's all happening here this morning. No, don't come in, bee. Just pull the window too. You know, after saying goodbye to Lily. So I didn't want to just come home and sit, you know, on the sofa all day and feel sorry for myself. So doing a bit of physical work was just the thing, and being outside in the fresh air and the sunshine. And I got quite a lot done. Oh yeah, the other thing was, another friend of mine, in fact a friend's husband, had given me some tomato plants and some dwarf sunflowers that he'd sown from seed. And so, can I squeeze a star out of this tiny bit? So they were still, you know, in little cramped pots all rammed in together, so I potted those up into bigger pots. I unthreaded my needle. I didn't want my tomato plants out yet, because we should be alright, but, you know, I don't trust it till May really here. In France they have something called the Saint du Glace, which is somewhere around the 13th of May. And that is after that when you don't risk frost anymore. So all the gardening people in France all wait until after the Saint du Glace before they put out any plants that are susceptible to frost. Yeah, I'm not going to do this, am I? Hands up who does this. I'm showing you something, look up. I'm showing you a disaster waiting to happen. I've unthreaded my needle once. I've got a tail of about ½ an inch through the eye of my needle. I just want to get one more spoke on my star. So then you can do this. You can put the needle through and then thread it. This is just being silly, because I could just easily have just got a new bit of gold. Now I have to finish off with this tiny bit. I've unthreaded it again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my needle just in the backing, and I'm going to just weave it under the backing cloth a bit, and then I'm going to thread it back up again. And I got a bigger eyed needle, I don't know if you saw me do that, just for this purpose, just so it was easier to thread. There we go, and that'll do pig. So all I wasted was 3/4 of an inch of floss. I don't do that every time. I suppose you could. Okay, so I'm quite liking the way they look. I want more of them all over. I probably won't do all of them in this video, because that's taken quite a long time to do that bit. But yeah, so I was telling you what Lily and I did, and I will remember the video that I talked about. I'm just trying to remember now. We went to Bath, yes, and I wanted to ask you all something, because I know there aren't any in France specifically. We went to Bath, which, if you don't know, is has been a city there since Roman times, or a town, a settlement there since Roman times, possibly earlier, but it's famous for its Roman baths. That's where it gets its name from. It's also very much associated with Jane Austen, the author, and it's so just over an hour's drive from here. But there's a clean air zone in the city centre, which there are in a lot of cities in the UK now. My car is exempt because it's little and relatively modern. So, but if you're not exempt, you have to pay a charge to go in to the city centre. And I think it's been for a while, but there's a park and ride. Yeah, there's a park and ride. So, and there's been park and rides for a long time, years and years and years. In fact, I think there's 3 park and rides for Bath at various points around the perimeter of the city. But there's one on my side, so we drove to that, which was on, outside the town, a big car park, and then the parking is, well, you have to pay to park unless you get the bus, and then it's included in your bus. And it wasn't that expensive, really, for Lily and I. Certainly it was cheaper than paying city centre parking. And so that's what we did. So we drove to there, we parked, and we got on the bus. And it was a double-decker bus. And that's what I wanted to ask you. Because Lily took pictures of the bus, of us on the bus, the view from the bus, and so on, and was sending them all to her boyfriend, who's French, she left him behind in France when she came over. And he was jealous, and he always wanted to go on a double-decker bus, because they don't have them in France. In France they have, in cities, certainly in Bordeaux, they have what I don't know what they call them in French. I should know, but I can't remember, and I'm doing my stitch the wrong way around now, never mind. Bendy buses, which is like 2 buses joined in the middle by some concertina type stuff, so they can go round corners and things, but so you get a super long bus and lots of people on it and only one driver. Bendy buses. And I first saw those in Bordeaux on a school trip, I think, or a college trip. College, 6th form college, so I would have been maybe 17. So that was 43 years ago, goodness me. 43 years ago, yeah. Time flies. Yeah, we went on a school trip all down through France and into Spain, and then we came back on the ferry across the Bay of Biscay. I'll tell you about that school trip another time. There are stories there, I'm sure. But that's when I first saw bendy buses, and to us they were like something, exotic. These buses with the concertina thing in the middle. But Lily's boyfriend Max was absolutely jealous, green with jealousy, that we'd gone on a double-decker bus. So then I was wondering if you have double-decker buses in other countries outside the UK. because we also have, this was a closed top bus, but we also have open top double-decker buses often in cities. If they've got them in London, they've got them in Bath. So you can go on a tour of the city, and you know, you can see the sights and everything, and sometimes there's a guide pointing things out to you. But often those are open top buses, so you can go up on the top and you're in the open air, you know, you can see the tops of the buildings and everything. You're not peering through a little window. Anyway, this wasn't an open top bus, this was a normal double-decker bus, and we went upstairs, up the front, where I can remember going as a young person riding on buses. I talked before about going on coach trips, going up the back. On a coach, you go up the back. I think they have double-decker coaches these days as well. On a coach, you go up the back if you're the cool kid. But on a double-decker bus, you go up the front. And I said to Lily, I really wanted, and would have done probably if Lily wasn't there. She doesn't embarrass easily, being my daughter, but you know, do the Titanic at the front, because modern buses, and I seem to remember in the olden times on the top of double-decker buses, it didn't feel like you were sat right on the prow, so to speak. I think there was even like a little shelf in front of you when you were sat on the very front seats under the window, like a windowsill, I suppose you'd call it. But this one, it was, you were sitting, you had room for your knees, and there was the window, and it was like a vertical drop. I think maybe in the olden times the engine was in front a bit. I don't know. Any bus experts out there, please weigh in. So yeah, so I wanted to stand in the window and do the, you know, the Titanic thing that, what's his name, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet did on the front of the Titanic in the film, to the Celine Dion song. You know the thing. I wanted to stand in the front of the double-decker bus and do that. It just seemed like, you know, it would have been appropriate, but I didn't. I resisted the urge. And sing Celine Dion at the same time. So yeah, so I'm curious if you have double-decker buses in other countries. I wonder if it's because of space restrictions here, because we're a relatively small country. You know, with not so much room, I don't know. Because it's logical to have a bus, two stories high, because you get the same, you get double the number of people in the same amount of space. There are issues here and there. If there are low bridges and things, buses can't go under. But yeah, so I'm curious. And as usual, I could go and Google, but it's much more fun asking you. And I hope it's more fun for you as well. And maybe some of you are interested about double-decker buses if you don't know them. Maybe if you've been here on holiday as a tourist and you've been to London, you've been on an open-top bus tour. There are lots of them all over the place. I have even been on one myself a few years ago as a tourist when I lived in France before and came to London on a city break. Sorry, I'm sighing because it was, you know, in my thing. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't enjoyable. It was. In fact, it was very enjoyable. I saw Oliver, the musical in the West End. It wasn't Ron Moody, it was... Oh, goodness me. Come on, man. I'm asking the man's name to come into my... Rowan Atkinson? No. It was either Rowan Atkinson or Griff Rhys-Jones, and for some reason I get those two mixed up. Played Fagin. And Nancy was the woman who won. There was here a programme on, I think on the BBC, about finding Nancy. I can't remember what the programme was called. There was a later one to find a Maria for The Sound of Music. I think the Nancy one came first. So it was, you know, they had all amateurs, I think, competing, and then I think it was public phone-in, one of those programmes. Anyway, it was the woman that won that, playing Nancy, and either Mr. Bean or Griff Rhys-Jones playing Fagin. I think it was Griff Rhys-Jones. I think it was Griff Rhys-Jones. You're all yelling at me if you know. I'm now imagining Mr. Bean playing Fagin, not Rowan Atkinson. Pretty sure it was Griff Rhys-Jones. Anyway. So yeah, I saw that, and I also saw Hair, the musical, which I'd not seen before. Squeeze another little star in here. But that was back, oh, when was that? That was probably in the first decade of this century, this millennium. It was probably around 2008, 2009, I would guess. I might be wrong. Anyway, and I also went on an open top bus. So, yeah, what was I saying? Open top buses. So do let me know if you have open top buses in other countries. I would imagine somewhere like, you know, all of you in those big countries with lots of room, you don't need open top buses because you, sorry, double-decker buses. Double-decker buses and open top buses. Because if you've got lots of room and, you know, big roads and all that, you don't really need them. It's like, I know in the States and possibly in Australia and New Zealand as well, I'm not sure, you have those big Winnebago type things, don't you, that you go camping in, you go on holiday in, those RVs, you call them recreational vehicles, but you have huge ones. I mean, ginormous ones by UK standards. You wouldn't get them round our little villages and through our little lanes and, you know, in our little car parks. Those big things. So we have tiny little caravans by comparison, and motorhomes, recreational vehicles. So I wonder if it's the same with buses. Because you've got the space, you don't have double-decker buses. And I know that the red double-decker bus is very much associated with London. And I know this because all those little tourist souvenir stands have loads of them, either printed on tea towels or little China ones, or, you know, China models of them, I mean, or, you know, double-decker bus memorabilia. And red phone boxes. I don't have so many red phone boxes anymore. The Bath bus was not red, I think it was blue or green, I think it was blue. So we got that park and ride into Bath, and we had a coffee when we first got there and listened to the buskers. If you go into the sort of the centre of the city where there's quite near the river and by the Roman baths and all that, and beautiful buildings and mostly built of the local stone, which is just lovely. And so we sat and had a coffee and listened to some buskers, and we thought of going in the Roman baths, but it's an arm and a leg. And we have been, Lily didn't remember. I kept saying, you've been in already, but I think she was only about 5 or 6, so she didn't remember. And I just couldn't bring myself to pay. It would have been over £50 for the two of us to go around, which just seemed to me to be a lot. So we didn't go in the Roman baths. We walked over Pont Bridge, which is a bridge over the river, and it's lovely because it's got little shops built into the bridge. And if you go in the shops or you look in through the window, I think they're only about 2 or 3 yards deep, and then there's the wall, and you know, you're on the bridge and there's the river. I'm going to come into this one and do that, splitting the star again with the white. So yeah, so we went in the charity shop and I bought Lily a jumper and some trousers, and she wanted to buy a present for her boyfriend's mum, whose birthday it was while she was away. And there was this gorgeous bracelet, and she wasn't sure what to get to her because she I mean, she does know her quite well, but she said her taste is quite difficult to pin down. And there was this bracelet and I loved it and I would have had it, but anyway, I conceded it to my mother-in-law. It was kind of gemstones, but you know, like I think it was maybe hematite and amethyst, something like that, tiny little stones in a silver bracelet interwoven, and it had a magnetic clasp, so the way it closed around your wrist, it was just excuse me, it was just two little magnets that snapped together. But it was really, they were really strong magnets. I put it on and Lily tried to undo them, you know, and you really had to pull, so you couldn't imagine that it would just fall off. And I said that it would suit someone like me. I'm not wearing any rings today or anything, but you've seen the sort of jewellery I wear, and I know a lot of you are the same because you've told me. Sort of hippy-dippy type jewellery. And I think it would also suit someone who was more, you know, I don't know, pretty jewellery type. It sat, I don't think anybody would have not liked it. There's a lot of negatives in there, but I hope you understand what I mean. So she bought it for her boyfriend's mum. Even though I loved it. No, I'm teasing. I was teasing her, and I'm teasing now. And she tried on this jumper and pair of trousers, and it just suited her. And the funny thing was, she tried them on. She came out of the changing room. I said, you know, come out and show me. And she'd put one of her shoes back on. I don't know why she put one of her shoes back on. So she came out with one shoe on and one shoe off, like Diddle Diddle Dumpling. Do you know that nursery rhyme? Diddle Diddle Dumpling, my son John went to bed with his trousers on. Is it? One shoe off and one shoe on. Diddle Diddle Dumpling, my son John. She came out like that with one shoe on. And she wasn't sure because the jumper was a really vivid green, like a kind of apple lime green, which wasn't a colour that she would normally choose, but it really suited her. So I was quite, you know, encouraging her to get it. And I said, well, let me take a picture of you and send it to Max, that's her boyfriend, and see what he thinks. So I sent him a picture. So I took a picture and sent it to him. And he replied, oh yes, it really, you know, it really suits her, it looks lovely, she should get it. And then he sent another message saying, maybe you should think about buying her another shoe as well. I went in some other shops, and we went in the fudge shop. There's a few fudge shops, but there's this one particular fudge shop where they have a big marble slab and they pour the fudge out of they cook it somewhere in the back, I think, and then they pour it out onto this big slab, and then they work it, you know, and they get it into a great big long loaf. Is it called a loaf when it's fudge? And then they slice it up. And they have a thing. They weren't doing the thing while we were there. I've got another star down there that I could do some white into. Where if you guess the weight, you get a free bit of fudge. But anyway, they weren't doing that, so we just bought some fudge. And it is the best fudge. Only we got the wrong flavour, or I think they mixed up our order, but it was fine. We wanted the flavour of the day, which they'd given us to try as we went in, which was chocolate but with cracked sea salt, which sounds weird but was delicious. I say was past tense because there's none left. And then it was like 3 slices for something or other, I can't remember. So we said, well, we'll have the chocolate, and then I'll choose a flavour, and Lily can choose a flavour. And I chose rum and raisin just because I love rum and raisin anything. I like rum and raisin ice cream, I like rum and raisin fudge. And Lily chose carrot cake fudge, which I pulled a face, so the young woman brought us some to try, and it was fudge, but it tasted like carrot cake, rather surprisingly. But when we got home, we had our chocolate and we had the rum and raisin, but we didn't have the carrot cake. We had maple and walnut, or maple and pecan instead. But anyway, it was also nice. So they made a mistake, but it was fine. Yeah, I think that's called the Fudge Kitchen. It's up one of the little... I used the word ginnel and Lily laughed at me. Up one of the little ginnels. I talked about ginnel when I did my Park Home Life, about the funny words, you know, different words. I said to Lily, what would you call it? And she said, an alleyway. And I said, well, to me an alleyway is more like where you put the bins. Do you know what I mean? Whereas a ginnel is cute and quaint, and I don't know, maybe it's just me. So we had a little bit of a debate about ginnels and alleyways going around Bath. What else did we do in Bath? And we had some lunch in a little cafe, and just a bit of quiche, which was nice. And yeah, we were there for quite a long time. We left Stella at home, so we didn't stay until the evening, obviously. So we got the double-decker bus back to the car park and drove home. And then we went on Monday, we went to the beach. We went where I've taken you before, to Burton Bradstock. And we had a cream tea, even though it was lunchtime, in the Hive, because Lily fancied one. The Hive is a beach cafe there. So we had a lovely walk on the beach. We had a sit on the beach. It was lovely weather. There were people swimming even. It was lovely. No wind. The sea was really calm. So we had a lovely sit on the beach, and then we went and had the cream tea at lunchtime. Cream tea, if you don't know, is a scone, or a scone if you prefer, and you can either have a plain scone or a fruit scone. These were fruit scones which had raisins and currants in. And then with that you have clotted cream, which you maybe don't even know what that is if you're not in this country. I don't know, it's a Cornish thing. It's a very, very thick cream. It's the only cream I like. It says that on the packet. No, it doesn't. This is the only cream Catherine likes. You know, I'm not a fan of whipped cream or chantilly cream or runny cream or any of those kind of creams, but I do like clotted cream. And then strawberry jam, that's traditional. And then you can have a whole debate, which I think we've had before, those of us who know these things, about whether you put the jam on first or the cream on first. And one is something you do in Cornwall. I think in Cornwall, now you have to correct me again because I can never remember, is it Cornwall cream first or Devon cream first? I go for jam first and cream on top, because my logic tells me, sorry, I'm struggling here because I'm on a seam and I can't get my needle through. Done it. Yes, I go for jam first because my logic tells me that if I was having a bowl of strawberries and cream, which is in principle what strawberry jam and clotted cream is, strawberries and cream, then you would put the strawberries first and the cream on the top, wouldn't you? You wouldn't put the cream in the bowl and then put the strawberries on the top. Or would you? Maybe some people would. I don't know. Lily's logic, and the people that do it, I think the Devon way, is that the cream replaces the butter, so you put the cream on first and the jam on the top. So if you know these things, you'll have to tell me. And there's a new thing, well, it's new to me, it must have been around for a while, but I've only started noticing it recently, and probably because a friend of mine often has it when it's available, and that's a savoury cream tea. And I'm pulling a face because I like a savoury scone, I like a piece of cheddar, I like chutney or pickle, love all those things, but if I'm having a cream tea, it's not savoury, it's... anyway, all my prejudices are coming out today. And so then with your scone, and we had, sometimes you get a great big scone, we had 2 small scones, and the cream and the clotted cream and the jam, and then a pot of tea, but of course you're free to have coffee or, you know. I saw here, I don't know if I've told you this already, here near where I live, I went in this little cafe with a friend for lunch, and there was a sign up, there were signs up round the counter on little chalkboards, you know, written on all the different things that were available for lunch and to eat and all that, and one of them said cream teas, and it said homemade scone, clotted cream, strawberry jam, pot of tea or coffee, you know, tea of your choice, all the different teas, herb tea, normal tea, blah blah. And then it said, so however much it was, I don't know, so let's say $7.95, I don't know, don't quote me. And then underneath it said, or upgrade to Prosecco for an extra £3. Prosecco is a champagne-y type drink, if you don't know. Like a fizzy white wine, which actually I prefer to champagne, but that's another story. What's happened while I've been away? Suddenly people are having Prosecco with their cream tea. Is that a new thing? As much as I do like Prosecco, I still think I would want the pot of tea with my scone and my jam and my clotted cream. Anyway, so yeah, so we went to the beach and we had a cream tea. Just summarising in case you lose the plot while I'm wittering. And then it was quite early in the day still because we got out early, and on the way back we went to this National Trust place that I've never been to before. I just looked on my National Trust app what was there in the vicinity, and it was called Coney Castle, and it was somewhere between Bridport and Bedminster if you're in the area, and you had to go up little lanes that were really narrow and steep with grass growing up in the middle of them. You know, it was a real journey up this hill in the car, a few miles. But then you got there and it was there was no castle anymore. It was a kind of fortified thing on a hill, you know, with banks around, banks of soil all grassed over and trees and everything. But it had obviously been an ancient fort or something because you had nearly 360-degree view all around. And we had a little walk up there and it was absolutely teeming with bluebells. So we saw bluebells at the local woods that I told you about, the ones that I tried to walk with Joey. They were full of bluebells. So we've seen 1 million bluebells in the last week. Yeah, so we had a lovely time, and it's been lovely sharing it with you because I've relived it as well, and it's cheered me up because it's always sad, isn't it, once you have something nice, especially with loved ones, and then it comes to an end. And I know there'll be more nice things happening in the future. In fact, Joey's coming back for the weekend in a couple of weeks because it'll be his birthday. So he's coming just for the weekend. I don't know if he'll do another Park Home Life. I'll have to see how the timing goes. But anyway, as far as the coverlet of comfort goes, I think I'm just going to carry on doing that with the little stitching in between. And when I've got enough stars that you can see, when I think I've got enough of the stars in all the space that I've got left, I might then just do this little sort of, it's like a hybrid running stitch, invisible base, so a tiny stitch on the front, a bigger stitch on the back. I might just weave about doing that. And then this Friday's video, if you haven't spotted it, if you haven't seen, if you only watched the stitching, I've started, instead of the slow journaling for a while, every other Friday between the Park Home Lives, doing a slow stitching video. So that, which could be anything. It could be more work on the coverlet of comfort. It could be me showing you one of my exhibition pieces that I'm working on. It could be something that pops into my head that I want to share with you. And it could be, and this will definitely feature because quite a lot of you have talked about it, how you choose what stitch to put where. You know, if you're working on, like for example, when I work on my eco prints, how they speak to me and how I interpret ideas in stitch, how I, you know, get ideas and how I tell the story of the cloth. So that's really for me going back to basics. And when I did the first video of that, which is the only one there's been so far, there was an overwhelming positive response to it. So yeah, so this Friday there'll be more of that slow stitching. I'm not exactly sure what yet. We'll see when we get there. But anyway, so I hope you enjoy finishing stitching on your friendship stars. When I finish the stitching, I'm going to go and join it to my comfort cloth. If I've done that by Friday, I'll show you. Otherwise, I'll show you next Wednesday, when it will be the first Wednesday in May, and I'll reveal the coming month's theme and the techniques that we're going to use and so on. I will give you a spoiler alert. There will be no piecing. So many of you will heave a huge sigh of relief. No piecing. No piecing whatsoever. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry if I went on so many tangents that you completely lost the plot. But anyway, as long as you enjoyed it, that's all. Oh, I didn't mention the video. I'd seen it. It kept coming up in my feed, and then someone Instagrammed me. I think it was either Lisa or Judith, because I had messages from both of you. I can't remember which one of you shared or maybe it was Mary Ellen even. One of those three people. it's on a TED talk in Manchester recently, 4 days ago or so, by someone called McNee, and it's about why we make art, or why we should make art, and why it's important, and why it should be prioritised in our lives and in society as a whole. And the thumbnail's got a word with asterisks in it, which I guess is to attract attention, and actually it put me off watching it when I saw it coming up, because I don't know. But anyway, someone sent me the link, so I looked past the thumbnail with the asterisks and I watched it, because I generally do like TED Talks, and it was wonderful, really, and I highly, highly encourage you to go and watch it, because she was talking about all the stuff that I talk about, only very eloquently and only in 15 minutes. So I'll put a link in the description box below, and I'll also try and put a link as a pinned comment, because I think that's easier for some of you to find, because I know it's a struggle to get that description box to come up, especially if you're watching on a television or something. So I'll put it as a pinned comment, so if you open the comments it'll be the top comment. But yeah, I'd strongly encourage you to go and watch that. So all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I don't think I've got anything else to say now, or any time to say it in, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more cloth tales. Bye bye. Bye bye.